Now, in quite a few places, you'll see these things. For example, user defaults, or for example, shared URL session. These are all what are known as singletons. And what's special about singletons is that there is only one copy of it that can be shared across all of your classes and objects. Now, let's say we create a new class that's called car. And by default, I'm going to give it a property called color that's going to be set to equal red. Now, say later on, we create some objects. We create my car equals car. And we're going to set my car's color property to blue. So say my favorite color, right? Now, let's say we create another object of car and we call it your car. Now, if we try to print your car's color property, can you guess what the value of it will be based on our code? So the value of it is red. And that's because it's a new object that has nothing to do with this object, my car, and it's getting its color from the default, which is the color red. Now, let's try and do the same thing, but this time we're going to create a singleton. So let's create a new class, and I'm going to call it exactly the same. I'm going to call it car, and I'm going to have a property called color, which equals red. Now, the special thing inside this class is that I'm going to create a singleton. I'm going to use the static let keywords, and I'm going to call my singleton car. And this is going to be set to equal a new object initialized from its own class, the car class. Now, instead of creating a new object of car in this file, I'm going to create a new constant that holds a reference to our singleton. So let's use the same name. Let my car equals car dot singleton car. And I say my car dot color equals blue. Now later on, let's create another reference to our singleton. Let's call it your car. And we say car dot singleton car, and we try to print the value of your car's color. Now in this case, we get blue, because it doesn't matter how many constants or variables or different ways that we point towards this singleton car, it's always going to be the same copy. So I can use it in different objects and different classes. So let's say class A. So where when we initialize class A, we set car dot singleton car dot color to brown, and class B we print car dot singleton car dot color, and we initialize A and B as new objects. You can see that even though we're affecting the color of this singleton car in completely different classes, it's still tapping into the same thing in the entirety of this file. Every single time we're trying to change, or rather get and set our singleton car, it's always been the same object. And when we think back to our user defaults, it's exactly the same. We're using that user defaults dot standard as a singleton to this user default. So you can see that this line and this line look structurally the same. And that's because inside this class called user defaults, there is a singleton called standard. And this points towards the same plist every single time we tap into the user defaults. So we're always retrieving and saving to the same file. And it stays the same across all of our classes and all of our objects. So singletons exist in other programming languages aside from Swift. So if you've programmed in other languages, this concept might not be new to you at all. But if this is the first time you've ever come across the Singleton or how it works or what it's all about, it might be worth having a read of the Swift documentation, which I'm going to link in the resources for this lesson. And if you want to learn more about user defaults in terms of all the different default values that you can store and you can retrieve, then have a look at the documentation, which is really good on this.